Now it's time for Lefties Losing It. And the lefties in the US are absolutely feral about a recent Supreme Court ruling in the birthright citizenship case. This explosive-ridden rant sums up the compassionate left perfectly. Please excuse all the bleeping.
All I gotta say is we're so Constitution. We don't have a Constitution anymore. No it. I mean, what the Supreme Court, Trump, all this, States of America, 1776, 4th of July, all of it. Whatever we even fought for, all of this and MAGA.
What a compelling argument, but at least that lady is just an ordinary citizen. This next video is a Democrat congresswoman who is holding a series of shadow hearings while on the immigration subcommittee. Check this out.
We have been trying to shine a light on the immigration subcommittee. We're in the minority, obviously, so we can't do official hearings, but I've started doing a series of shadow hearings to shine a light on all of the ways that the government is attacking immigrants and the legal immigration system. The first one was on third country deportations. The whole series is called Kidnapped and Disappeared.
What a shocker. But I think a lot of this could be sorted out with better education and information. But the polar opposite of this.
Did you know that the term good morning was originated when our ancestors were being held as captives during so-called slavery? Slave owners, after spending all night torturing, murdering, and kidnapping their loved ones, would greet them at sunrise with, "Did you have a good morning?" That was their way of mocking us because they knew that we had just spent all night crying and mourning the loss of our loved ones.
And as time goes by and the world becomes increasingly bonkers, I really understand people who choose to homeschool their kids.
So parents can now pull their kids from lessons that have LGBTQ components. All right. You know, as a teacher, I don't give a because I'll just give them an assignment that basically covers like America descending into fascism or hypocrisy, and I'll use Trump and the Republicans for that. Like, I don't care. I'll go after them anyway. I'll just give them a lesson that hits even harder.
But don't worry, there's apparently a coup coming.
Our base has a lot of activity. There have been 4 Black Hawk helicopters, several jets, and several C-4s full of equipment taking off today. I'm hoping that today is the day. However, it may be tomorrow, but it looks like they're moving very quickly and they're taking this seriously. So be on the lookout. I will update you as soon as I can. Insider said it is time for us to initiate. Okay, so let's do this, guys. Let's do it.
For the love of baby Jesus, send the asteroid. Joining me now is Newsweek Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Senior Project Counsel Josh Hammer. Josh, plenty of commentary and theatre around the passing of Trump's big, beautiful bill in the US Senate. What's the bill about and why all the fuss?
Well, this is the one major budget bill that is set to be passed in the U.S. Congress this year. So it's a little more complicated than that. It goes back to a 1974 statute here called the Budget Control Act, which introduced this process that on Capitol Hill they refer to as reconciliation. It's kind of in the weeds parliamentary terms. What it basically means is that you have one shot. You basically have one shot to pass a budgetary, fiscal, revenue-related bill, not necessarily with a 60-vote veto or filibuster-proof majority, but with a bare 51-vote majority. You essentially get one bite at the apple to pass a clean 51-vote bill that happens to be the so-called one big, beautiful bill. Now, the problem is that because of the arcane nature of this reconciliation procedure, there was an individual called the Senate parliamentarian who can essentially strip certain parts of the bill to make sure that it accords with the ultimate goal, which is to reduce the budget deficits. That's a very fancy way of saying that it's been very contentious because a lot of people are trying to add provisions that are not necessarily going to pass the Senate parliamentarians, his muster. But this is important for President Trump for the following reason, and I'll be brief here, which is that this is Donald Trump's nationalist populist sentiment in action. Once upon a time, the Republican Party, when it was ruled by a Tea Party, more libertarian, shrink the government at all costs flavor, this sort of thing would have been anathema. I mean, the party that folks like Mike Lee and Rand Paul came of age in 2010, around then, was all about trying to kind of get back to the traditional congressional appropriations process. The notion that you would actually just get it all into what Trump calls a one big beautiful bill is actually very different. And that speaks about the nationalist populist MAGA dominance of today's Republican Party. So the fact that it looks like that there are going to be 51 Republican senators at least on board to get this thing through, my big takeaway, Caroline, is that this is Donald Trump's Republican Party, period, full stop, end of story.